Hello everybody and welcome to In My Mug, episode 116 on Monday the 31st of January 2011. My name is Steve Layton and I like coffee more than I like the dodgems at the fair. Okay, make yourself comfy. Yet again, I have a feeling this is going to be a very, very long one. This week's was one of the hardest coffees to pick since I've been doing In My Mug, particularly after Machikamaka had such a great response. I don't think I've ever had quite so much feedback about a coffee or a video. You seem to all like it quite a lot, and that's cool. An update on that, we've sold around about 20% of the crop in 7 days, so I think that's pretty awesome. But anyway, every other Twitter post I seem to be answering was about Machikamaka. It's been brilliant. But yeah, how do you follow that? What do you follow it with? Well, I think I've chosen the perfect coffee to follow Machikamaka. Because like Machikamaka, it's a really, really important coffee to us. But it's a very, very different cup. So that's important. Like, kind of opposite end of the scale, if you like. It has an amazing story of how we found it. And it's one that I think you're really going to remember. I think it's going to be one that's going to be like the big hitter that knocks it out the park. And I hope that you're all going to enjoy it as much as Machikamaka. We've got some great coffees lined up. Just remember, they're not all going to be like this 2 weeks because this is a special week. So anyway, farm is called Fazenda Terramater, which means Earth Mother. And he's one of our direct trade biodynamic coffees from Bahia that we've seen a few of so far this year. It's the second year of having it. We're really lucky that it's a world exclusive. All of this farm's coffee production comes to us. And when I first visited the farm back in 2009, it was on its knees. It was a farm in decline. It was in serious trouble. You could see that. And it's beautiful going back this year to see how it's moved on. So anyway, Terramater is owned by Arandeta, oh, I can't even say his name, Menez, who's owned this very unusual, unique farm since the 80s. And it certainly isn't your normal specialty coffee farm. In fact, I don't think I've been anywhere like it. It is the most unusual farm. When I first visited in 2009, the production was just 8 bags. And this wasn't because the farm couldn't produce more, because in its heyday I think it was producing 200 bags. But it was a result of being very disorganised. Arandeta didn't have a market to sell it to, so nobody wanted to buy it, so there was no motivation. And he'd moved much more into hosting people in the house, so he would have guest stop like a bed and breakfast. The other factor was that Arandeto's firm belief in biodynamic farming. It's had the biggest effect on yield I think I have ever seen. He refuses to use external fertilisers. The only food that the plants get are the branches that fall from the trees. This isn't shade grown. This is kind of, this is crazy. This is how does it grow. But this year, we're up to 28 bags. That is in 12 months because he has somewhere to sell it to. He's excited by coffee. And again, it's a world exclusive that we've bought all of it. We're excited about working with the farm. It's a beautiful, beautiful marriage. So, when I first went, Arandeta was explaining to me about the birds and the animals in the area, that if you cut down these trees, basically they would have nowhere to go. The wildlife would, there isn't anywhere else because it's such a heavily farmed agricultural area. And for an intelligent man who has a degree in agricultural engineering, he spent much of his working life as a scientist, but he's very passionate about biodynamics. The two must constantly be like a battle inside for him. But I shot a really cool piece of video while I was on the farm this year, and during the break, while I go and make the drinks, I'm going to show you that video, and I hope you will love it. I found it really interesting. It's been painful editing and putting the subtitles on. You do not know how hard it is to put subtitles on something. But I really think it's been worth it because it gives you a great insight into why he's so firm in his belief about biodynamic farming. It's incredibly interesting. And I found it really quite eye-opening as well. So, I had a big problem buying this coffee last year and also this year. And this isn't because I don't love it, because I do love it. I think it's a fantastic coffee. But I'm not sure whether I was being biased by the story, and I loved it because of that, or whether it was truly a beautiful, lovely, distinctive cup. when you cup it on a table full of Brazils, there's nowhere for it to hide. It's very different. It's very kind of, you're tasting something unusual. And we kept trying to hide it, but you just keep finding it. It's there. But I am delighted with it. I think it's an amazing cup, and I really think it's a great addition to the farm. Great addition to our collection of coffees. To tell you how we originally found the coffee, back in November 2009, when I was on my first trip to Bahia, I was on my way back to the airport, and Luca was telling me about this farm that was crazy. It was disorganised. Luca's from Araquan, by the way, the coffees that we've been introducing a lot of recently. And he didn't want me to go to this farm, but it was on the way to the airport, and I kind of twisted his arm and convinced him. Because the more he told me about it, the more I was intrigued by it. You know, he said, it's unusual, it's weird, and I thought that would be really cool. You know, and I was like, well, why is it so different? So when we got there, there's these two huge dogs come bounding out. One's called Hugo Chavez, and the other one's called Che Guevara. Kind of gives you a little bit of insight into what this guy, his interests are. This quirky kind of 70-year-old guy with a ponytail came out and was like, Americano, and I was like, no, Inglaterra. And then he started on a big rant about America, and then all I really picked out was George Bush. And this was the guy who owned the farm, Aradetto. And I kind of got the feeling he has a lot of visitors. Because as we were walking around, it was a beautiful, tranquil, relaxing farm, and it is one of the most beautiful farms. Even though it's disorganised, there's lots of flowers and lots of fauna, but I felt a little bit uneasy. And it wasn't that he didn't make me feel welcome. It's just something I couldn't quite put my finger on, and it was strange. And I kind of put that down to, I guess, that there are a lot of people that end up going through that farm. And but this year when I went, and because we bought the coffee and we backed it up with actually buying some, it was completely different. Aradetto was expecting us, his wife had cooked us the most beautiful meal. I think I've got a photo and I'll wrap it up now. And we chatted for ages, and I speak no Portuguese and he speaks no English, but we had deep conversations and stuff I understood as well. And I didn't understand a lot of other Portuguese while I was there, but him, I kind of understood. It was weird. It was really, really cool. And it's just an amazing place. It really is just an amazing place. Located in a very small village, which I can't remember the name of because I'm rubbish. But its altitude ranges from 1,050, which is the very bottom part where it's on a real steep slope and goes up to 1,200 metres. So that gives you an idea. It's not a big farm, but there's lots of slopes there. The area that it's in is Chapada Diamantina, which is the largest biodynamic producing region in Brazil, and a lot of that is down to Aradetto's kind of campaigning and working and convincing of people. Floresta and Aranquan, that we know, are both farms because of Aradetto. Over 650 people employed in the industry as well. And yeah, it's a cool place. The biodynamic thing I've talked about before. We are the only biodynamic roaster at the time of filming that in the UK. We were the first because we are the only one, and it's something I'm really proud of. But what is biodynamics? Well, Aradetto's going to tell you a little bit about that, but I'm going to give you the Stevie Layton version of it. It basically means that the farmers give us stuff about the land. They give us stuff about the people who work on the land. They give us stuff about the animals that live on the land, and they care for the farm in a holistic approach. So they look after everything. Nothing but organic fertilisers. Nothing that is going to harm the land in any way. And that kind of sits really well with Earth Mother. You know, with Terramater being Earth Mother, it just sits in really cool. Now, I am no eco warrior. I couldn't be further from it. I don't think we should harm the environment, but I don't go out campaigning and things like that. But with the video you're going to watch in a minute, this is kind of one of the reasons why I get excited about it, because you don't... they're not doing it for financial value, they're doing it because they truly believe it's better for the land, and that's a beautiful thing. It's not a financial reward thing. And when you talk to them, there's some real passion. Just like I like to think I've got passion in the coffee, they have passion in what they're doing. The processing of this coffee is pulp natural, but... it's the weirdest pulp natural I've ever seen. I'm gutted because I had a beautiful piece of video of Aradetto doing all the processing, and it is the dangerousest thing I've ever seen. Health and safety would go crazy. I wish I could find it, but basically they're pulping it, and they don't have raised beds, so they're drying it on patios, which is quite normal, but just crazy. Just bits of twig in there, bits of leaf in the processing, and the picking isn't the most selective I've seen, but it's an amazing cup. And then that just goes to show that processing isn't, you know, it isn't massive, it doesn't matter so much. You know, it's important, don't get me wrong, but I tell you the story that last year when I went, I kind of cupped it and I thought this could be a lot more if it was processed off-site. So we spoke to Luca and Nelson and said, could we process this at Floresta and Araquan? And then, yeah, we can do that. But this year when I went, Aradetto tried to convince me that it wouldn't be such a good thing and he really wanted to keep the processing on-site. So that's what we did. We decided to keep it on site, and I'm kind of pleased we did, because I think a lot of the character of this cup comes because of the way that it is processed, and I think we would have took something away from the unique cup that it is if we decided to do that elsewhere. I am really pleased. I think it's the right decision, and I know last year everybody, I don't think I heard a negative thing about this coffee, but you always heard this is different. It's good. It's good to find different coffees and different things. And Aradetto was very passionate about keeping it on site. So who are we to go in with our big muddy boots and say we'll do it elsewhere? So numbers. Farm is called Fazenda Terramater. It's owned by Aradetto Menez. The city that it's close to is called Ibacora, I've remembered. Region is in Bahia, in Chiapa Diamantina. Country is, of course, Brazil. Farm size is 20 hectares, of which 9 is coffee growing. An altitude of up to 1,200 metres, but an average of around about 1,100. Varietal is Typica and Nacional, which is a very close relation to Typica, to be honest, but it's very traditional kind of varietal in Bahia, and particularly in Chiapa Diamantina, and works well with biodynamics. So, I'm going to wipe you on pause. Please do watch the next 6 minutes or so of Aradetto. You really get the feeling in the video he wants to reach out to you and he wants to kind of raise awareness of what he's doing. And I think we'll all, well, I certainly did learn something about agriculture and organic agriculture. And if nothing else, you will see it and think, I want to buy this lovely guy's coffee, because there is something very charismatic about him that... I love all the farmers we buy from, but Aradetto for some reason has kind of hit a little bit of a nerve with me. So I'm going to whack you on pause, going to watch the video, and I will be back in around about 6.5 minutes.
Why is biodynamic agriculture important to the region?
Não só na região da Chapada Diamantina, na Bahia, né, na América Latina, assim, no mundo inteiro, a agricultura orgânica e biodinâmica ela é importante porque ela é a agricultura que permite a gente alcançar o futuro. Permite que a gente, de fato, que a gente consiga produzir um produto de boa qualidade, né, para a saúde das pessoas que consomem esse produto, e que nós possamos, assim, preservar esse ambiente de trabalho, onde fazemos agricultura, para que as próximas gerações possam continuar fazendo agricultura e fazendo uma agricultura responsável, como a que nós fazemos, ou procuramos fazer, ou procuramos orientar para que um coletivo maior faça essa agricultura. Não apenas nós, da nossa associação, da Associação de Agricultura Biodinâmica de Ibiquara, da Chapada Diamantina, da Bahia, do Brasil, né? Mas que, de um modo geral, todas as pessoas que vivem de agricultura e que vivem da agricultura para a agricultura possam encontrar o que a gente está chamando de sustentabilidade, né? Mas pensando a sustentabilidade de uma forma bem ampla, pensando a sustentabilidade na questão ambiental, pensando a sustentabilidade na questão social, né? Também na questão econômica. Mas como eu disse para você num outro momento, a questão econômica não depende só de nós. O que depende de nós é a responsabilidade ambiental, é a responsabilidade e o compromisso social, né? Também o compromisso com os valores, né, do campesinato, que são as pessoas que fazem agricultura e vivem da agricultura, que tudo isso seja preservado. Isso a gente consegue garantir. Mas o resultado econômico não depende só de nós, depende de toda uma sociedade, né, que está no processo da comercialização, que está no processo do consumo, que compra o nosso produto lá no final, e que saiba o que está comprando. Né? Que por trás daquele produto que está sendo adquirido naquele momento, né, existe uma história de pessoas que estão no campo tentando cumprir o seu papel. O seu papel na sociedade, na civilização, você entende, no compromisso com o planeta, no compromisso com a humanidade, né? E no compromisso, sobretudo, das pessoas que fazem e vivem da agricultura, né? Essa é a nossa maior responsabilidade.
When we were walking around, you were telling us about the agroforestry system. Can you tell us a bit more about some of the key aspects of agroforestry?
Certo, eu acho bom você estar lembrando isso. Eu diria, sobretudo nesse momento que estamos vivendo, com as ameaças das mudanças climáticas, né, que o planeta inteiro, né, a humanidade inteira já começa a sentir os resultados das mudanças climáticas, que não estão muito bem definidas para a população como um todo, mas está claro para quem estuda isso. O sistema agroflorestal, sobretudo para a região tropical, onde nós temos sol muito forte, eu diria que é também a agricultura do futuro, para nós nos trópicos, porque nós temos muito sol. Esse sol a gente pode transformar em energia, em alimento, em substância, né, através do mundo vegetal, mas esse sol também pode matar a terra, se a gente não consegue manejar esse sol de uma forma adequada, né, para absorver essa luz do sol para fazer fotossíntese e produzir na agricultura. Né? Então, o sistema agroflorestal, no nosso entendimento, está sendo a agricultura que vai ser possível daqui para diante. Né? Sobretudo se a gente faz a biodiversificação com o componente arbóreo que compõe os sistemas agroflorestais.
We noticed that your recent plantings is mostly the Typica variety. Why did you select this particular variety to plant in the forest?
Também, porque alguns estudiosos acham que essas variedades modernas, elas talvez tenham perdido a eficiência de fazer fotossíntese na sombra, como as variedades que vieram lá da África, da Etiópia, né, que é o café, vem de lá da Etiópia, o arábica.
Essa é uma hipótese.
Não é mais do que uma hipótese. Eu acho que é uma constatação, né, de que o café, ele se originou e se desenvolveu em condição de um arbusto de mata, de floresta, e fazia fotossíntese dentro da floresta, essas variedades típicas faziam. Quando o processo de modernização de agricultura quis desenvolver variedades produtivas baseadas ou dependentes dos agroquímicos, né? Muitas transformações ocorreram na planta café, A questão é saber, ela mantém aquele potencial original, aquela aptidão original de fazer fotossíntese com pouca luz, com pouco sol, com as árvores protegendo, você entende aquela planta? Isso é mais um desafio posto para a gente. Né? Como que essas variedades modernas vão se comportar comparando com aquelas variedades típicas tradicionais se comportavam antes, né, da gente desenvolver essas variedades modernas. Tá?
Okay. Yes, thanks a lot for your time. Is there a message that you would like to leave to the audience about your farm, the work that you do?
A gente fica com um sentimento muito bom de estar oferecendo para as pessoas que estão sendo informadas da importância da qualidade do alimento, esse alimento com qualidade, né? Para que as pessoas que estão na cidade, que não estão envolvidas na produção, né, possam se beneficiar. Mas, ao mesmo tempo, a gente gostaria muito que essas pessoas procurassem entender melhor o que é que acontece no campo. Procurassem entender melhor o que é a agricultura. Quem são as pessoas que estão no campo trabalhando, produzindo esse alimento de qualidade. Né? Nós estamos ofertando a essas pessoas essa possibilidade de saúde, que é um alimento com vitalidade. Gostaríamos que essas pessoas pudessem olhar a agricultura, você entende, com outros olhos, sabe? Com uma outra consideração, né? Com um entendimento maior do que significa aquilo que nós estamos fazendo por elas, sabe? Que elas cheguem próximas do campo.
Ok, muito
bom?
obrigado.
De nada.
Ok.
Okay, so I'm back. My weekly run of running around with espresso to here, so I'm going to dive straight into it. I haven't brought a spoon with me today, which is something I've been going on about, but a swirl and as good as a stir, I guess. So straight off you can smell on this that you're getting loads and loads of like woody, barky, kind of earthy tones coming through. But there's an underlying sweetness as well, which smells interesting, so... Very big, very as an espresso, it's probably not my thing because it's too intense, it's very, very in your face. But there's a sweetness there as well, there's a real contrast. When you get earthy, barky flavours, you don't get so much sweetness, but this has the two going on and it's a real conflict. And it's such a complex coffee. Think... The descriptor I come up with for the bag was chocolatey Claire, and it really does taste, and as it cools, even more so. It's one of the descriptors I'm most happiest about is the chocolatey Claire, and that really comes through in the espresso. It's chewy, it's got a presence. So I'm going to snozzer in the bowl first, forgot again last week, before I go into the cappuccino and the brewed, so... okay, so... On the aromatics again, you're getting loads and loads of woodiness, loads of bark. It's all over this coffee, all over it. I'll show you a picture of the rose colour now. You'll see from the rose colour here that it's medium dark. It's kind of edging towards, because otherwise it does taste a little bit cardboardy if you take it too much lighter. So this kind of espresso, good place for espresso style of roast that some people will have you believe is a good place for this coffee. It does work very well in that espresso, but it works very well in the brewed as well that we're going to move on to. Time for milk. I'm actually quite proud of my latte art today, and I would gladly show it, but it made me running up to camera and pouring it all over. So that presence really helps it cut through the milk. But because the milk is naturally sweet, you don't get so much of those earthy, barky tones. You get much more of that chocolatey kind of chewiness come through. I'll go as far as to say that's right up there. That's right up there with the Matcha Kamaka last week in milk for me. It's different, very different, but because it's so different, it's really nice, and that's why I thought this would be a great coffee to go with for this week. Time for the brew. Going to show you a picture of the mug now. This was very kindly donated to me by Rob Smith. Rob took this off my Flickr account and sent it me after Muggate. I actually did have one of these mugs originally, but it was one of the ones that got smashed. So I am most grateful to you, Rob. That is really kind. And thank you to everybody who sent me lovely mugs. I think I've got them all covered now, but please feel free to send them in. I love mugs. So let's pour some brewed coffee. Now this is where the earthy tones take over in the brewed. You really, really get that big barky, and it's not woody. It's in the sense of like a Sumatra's woody. It's woody as in it's chomping on a bit of bark woody. It really is a unique woodiness. It's not, woodiness is normally something that's very negative in a cup, and I don't want to focus on the negativity of that. I think it is delicious because it's so different. But let's dive in. Okay, so for me that's probably, it works well. It's a good brewed coffee, but if I have to rate them in order of preference, I think I'm going to go espresso first, cappuccino second, brewed third. And that's because as an espresso, it's really got that chewy kind of chocolatey, clary flavour in there. In milk, It's there, it's got a real presence, it cuts through the milk well. In brewed, it's delicious, but it's just another great Brazil. In the brewed, it's kind of like, and there's lots of those, and it loses a little bit of its character that it has in those two. Could be that I've screwed up the brew, I guess. But so, 3 things to know about this coffee. 1, it's direct trade, world exclusive, buy everything from the farm. Fact 2, it is biodynamic coffee that we've talked about and Aradetto's talked about here. 3, cup profile is woody, bark-like, chocolatey clear, you know, as in the sweet, not as in a chocolatey clear, and incredibly chewy and got a real... Actually, this brood is going on... I'm changing my mind all over, but... I think it's actually... I've been quite harsh on that, it actually works really well. So yes, woody, bark, chocolatey clear, sweety type thing, and very chewy. The numbers, farm is Fazenda Terramater, owner is Aradetto Menez, city is Ibacora, remembered, getting better. Country is Brazil, region is Chiapa Diamantina. Oh, I'm going to get them all right. Farm size is 20 hectares with a producing size of 9 hectares and its altitude of 1050 to 1200 metres with an average of 1100 metres above sea level. The varietals are Typica and Nacional and the varietal is Pulped. Pleased with myself, you can say. I hope you've enjoyed this week's. I know it's been a marathon and if you've got to this point, I love you all dearly. I hope you think it's been worth it. I am going to wrap up because I've got to go home and do an editing marathon. Why am I doing this? Listen, life is too short for bad coffee.